Hello students, welcome to the lecture on decision making, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the nature of decision making, describe the process of decision making, define the decision making under certainty, uncertainty, discuss the characteristics of decision making, understand the elements of decision making, explain the types of decision making and its importance, define the decision tree and brainstorming. Let's start with the concept of decision making. Every day, people are posed with options and choices to make. In the many actions and situations that individuals face each day, decisions have to be made. To some, decision making seems like a complicated and difficult thing to do. Here are two standard definitions of the decision making. Decision making is the study of determining and choosing among options or alternatives based on the preferences and values of the individual. Decision making is the process of reducing any hesitation or uncertainty about the available options in order to attain a practical and sensible choice. Let us now discuss the nature of decision making. Decision making is believed to be an art than a science. The reason is that very fundamental decisions are taken at the planning stages which are difficult to conceive and later implement. One cannot lay down a structure and say this is how he can solve a problem. Some of the guidelines of decision making are negative decision making. Decision making is really thinking of alternatives and then choosing one to convert into action. Decision making is action oriented. We take decision to decide application of particular resources in a given direction without which results would not take place. Decisions are value based. We lead all our life weighing actions on a value scale. Decisions are time based. One must understand the two types of time elements in decision making. The first is time for implementing decision. Now moving on to the next topic, we will study the process of decision making. Decision making is a daily activity for any human being. There is no exception about that. When it comes to business organizations, decision making is a habit and a process as well. Effective and successful decisions make profit to the company and unsuccessful ones make losses. Quite literally, organizations operate by people making decisions. A manager plans, organizes, staffs, leads and controls her team by executing decisions. Managers are constantly called upon to make decisions in order to solve problems. Decision making and problem solving are ongoing processes of evaluating situations or problems, considering alternatives, making choices and following them up with the necessary actions. The decision-making process involves the following steps. Define the problem, identify limiting factors, develop potential alternatives, analyze the alternatives, select the best alternative, and implement the decision. Establish a control and evaluation system. Time pressures frequently cause a manager to move forward after considering only the first or the most obvious answers. However, successful problem solving requires thorough examination of the challenge, and a quick answer may not result in a permanent solution. Thus, a manager should think through and investigate several alternative solutions to a single problem before making a quick decision. The following specific rules should be followed during brainstorming sessions. Concentrate on the problem at hand. This rule keeps the discussion very specific and avoids the group's tendency to address the events leading up to the current problem. Entertain all ideas. In fact, the more ideas that comes up, the better. In other words, there are no bad ideas. Encouragement of the group to freely offer all thoughts on the subject is very important. Refrain from allowing members to evaluate others' ideas on the spot. All judgment should be deferred until all thoughts are presented and the group concurs on the best ideas. No matter what technique is used, group decision making has clear advantages and disadvantages when compared with individual decision making. The following are among the advantages. Groups provide a broader perspective. Employees are more likely to be satisfied and to support the final decision. Opportunities for discussion help to answer questions and reduce uncertainties for the decision makers. These points are among the disadvantages. This method can be more time consuming than one individual making the decision on his own. The decision reached could be a compromise rather than the optimal solution. Individuals become guilty of groupthink, the tendency of members of a group to conform to the prevailing opinions of the group. Managers are paid to make decisions, but they are also paid to get results from these decisions. Positive results must follow decisions. Everyone involved with the decision must know his or her role in ensuring a successful outcome. Ongoing actions need to be monitored. An evaluation system should provide feedback on how well the decision is being implemented, what the results are, and what adjustments are necessary to get the results that were intended when the solution was chosen. Let's know the meaning of decision making under uncertainty and uncertainty. Virtually all decisions are made in an environment to at least some uncertainty. However, the degree will vary from relative certainty to great uncertainty. There are certain risks involved in making decisions. In a situation involving certainty, people are reasonably sure about what will happen when they make a decision. The information is available and is considered to be reliable, and the cause and effect relationships are known. Moreover, they cannot evaluate the interactions of the different variables. For example, a corporation that decides to expand its operation to an unfamiliar country may know little about the country's culture, laws, economic environment, and politics. The political situation may be volatile that even experts cannot predict a possible change in government. In a situation with risks, factual information may exist, but it may be incomplete. To improve decision making, one may estimate the objective probability of an outcome by using, for example, mathematical models. On the other hand, subjective probability based on judgment and experience may be used. All intelligent decision makers dealing with uncertainty like to know the degree and nature of the risk they are taking in choosing a course of action. Let's know the characteristics of decision making. Time is money. Indecision can be very expensive. Are we slow to act? Regularly miss decision deadlines often. Find ourselves scrambling to get work done. Unless we are lucky and work in a very stable niche, this behavior will get us left behind. We would not respond quickly enough to change. We would not learn new things. People will be increasingly frustrated as we hold them up. Researchers have determined that a number of characteristics have been exhibited by decision makers, and those decisions can be timed right or off-centered. Some defining characteristics are procrastinator. Do we find ourselves being a procrastinator? Procrastinators miss deadlines and performance targets. If we procrastinate, we might not produce consistent decisions. Ever been caught short on deadlines? Start earlier. Always do 10% of thinking about the decision immediately after it is assigned, so we can better gauge what it is going to take to finish the rest. Deciding last minute, not only will we not be timely, but our decision quality and accuracy will be poor. Disorganized. We cannot operate helter-skelter and make quality, timely decisions. We need to set tighter priorities. When under time pressure and increased uncertainty, we have to put the keel in the water ourselves. Focus more on the mission, critical few decisions. Do not get diverted by trivial work and other decisions. Perfectionist. Always want to be 100% sure? Has that stifled clear thinking? Perfectionism is tough to let go because most people see it as a positive trait for them. They pride themselves on never being wrong. Decision timing. It is very common for people to be timely in some areas, budget decisions, and untimely in others, given employee negative feedback. Sometimes we avoid certain areas. cautiously forward-looking, finding ourselves in analysis paralysis, break out of our examine it to death mode and develop a more philosophical stand towards failure or criticism. After all, most innovations fail, most proposals fail, and most change efforts fail. Anything worth doing takes repeated effort. Small steps. Think of a big decision as a series of smaller ones. The essence of timely decision making is the tolerance of increased errors and mistakes and absorbing the possible heat and criticism that follow. Hesitate to educate. Do not have the confidence to decide? Get away from it. Return to it later. Let our brains soak it in and work on it. Scope the problem, consider options, pick one, develop a rationale, and then go to others. Elements of decision making. Effective decision making is paramount to the creation of value. And as things get more and more complicated, it's harder and harder to make effective decisions. So what are the key elements to effective decision making? The decision-making process should make a distinction between generic conditions and unique situations. Too often organizations are making decisions with an aggressive attitude that implies that we have the resources to implement our decisions and we can overcome any and all adversity. In reality, this may not be the case. For example, projects like enterprise resource planning will sometimes trap companies into a deeper and deeper hole. Important elements in decision making. Intuition. The element of intuition is useful in decision making in view of time expediency and making a purposeful use of decision making ability. It is the outcome of the inner feelings of the decision maker. Facts. Facts provide efficient and effective basis for making decisions. Before using authority means power to make decisions and to see that they are carried out. When a decision is acceptable to the organization, this lends authority to the decision maker. Let's know the meaning of types of decision making. When deciding on the most suitable decision making method, it is important to consider that full participation is not required in every occasion. We cannot expect in a group all decisions to be made by the entire group. Decisions can be categorized into three basic classifications. Decisions whether. This type of decision is a yes, no or either or decision. Before choosing the best and the most suitable choice, the person decides whether it is amenable or not. Decisions which. These decisions are taken from a set of alternatives which are compared to each other for the most probable and beneficial option based on a set of criteria. Contingent decisions. These are decisions that were already identified but are set aside until the conditions are approved and met. Traditionally, organizations count on different types of decisions: irreversible, reversible, experimental, trial and error. Importance of decision making. Making decisions in our daily lives and in the workplace can be one of the most overlooked processes. The daily routine presents us with hundreds of decisions, many quite small, but every now and then there comes the big decisions that seem to turn life upon its head depending on the path we choose. Each of us in making decisions must choose which path we will travel by. We do not have to choose obscure paths to take the road less traveled by, but we do have to take paths that require courage in making decisions. Decision tree. A decision tree is a graph that uses a branching method to illustrate every possible outcome of a decision. Informally, decision trees are useful for focusing discussion when a group must make a decision. Group-aided decision making. As a group, many decisions need to be made. There are advantages and disadvantages of group-aided decision making. Advantages of group-aided decisions. Greater pool of knowledge, different perspectives, greater comprehension and increased acceptance, training ground. Disadvantages of group-aided decisions: social pressure, domination by a vocal view, log rolling, goal displacement, groupthink. Brainstorming. Brainstorming is a process for developing creative solutions to problems. Alex Fackney, Osborne, an advertising manager, popularized the method in 1953 in his book Applied Imagination. 10 years later, he proposed that teams could double their creative output with brainstorming. Brainstorming works by focusing on a problem and then deliberately coming up with as many solutions as possible and by pushing the idea as far as possible. Write down a brief description of the problem. The leader should take control of the session, initially defining the problem to be solved with any criteria that must be met, and then keeping the session on course. Use the description to get everyone's mind clear of what the problem is and post it where it can be seen. This helps in keeping the group focused. Encourage an enthusiastic, uncritical attitude among brainstormers and encourage participation by all members of the team. Encourage them to have fun. Write down all the solutions that come to mind, even ribald ones. Do not interpret the idea, however, one may rework the wording for clarity's sake. Do not evaluate ideas until the session moves to the evaluation phase. Once the brainstorming session has been completed, the results of the session can be analyzed and the best solutions can be explored either using further brainstorming or more conventional solutions. Do not censor any solution, no matter how silly it sounds. The silly ones will often lead to creative ones. The idea is to open up as many possibilities as possible and break down preconceptions about the limits of the problem. The leader should keep the brainstorming on subject and should try to steer it towards the development of some practical solutions. Once all the solutions have been written down, evaluate the list to determine the best action to correct the problem.
Sometimes the hardest part of writing an essay is just getting it started. For that, good brainstorming is an important first step to writing a really cracking essay. Let's explore some techniques for brainstorming depending on whether you have time to write an essay or if you're under the gun. If you have a lot of time, get a group together and talk about your essays. The original meaning of the term brainstorming is just what it sounds like, a storm of brains. Okay, not literally, but the idea was that getting a bunch of people together to talk about the ideas would produce more and better ones than one person sitting alone by themselves. Most of the time, you're going to get essay assignments as a class, so grab some study partners and talk it out. Even if you haven't picked the same topics, just talking about the text you're reading should help the group come up with more ideas together. If you're familiar with this kind of brainstorming, you may have been told that the best approach is to not question or criticize the ideas of others while you're doing it. But research suggests that that couldn't be further from the truth. According to a 2003 study from the University of California at Berkeley, people who debated each other's ideas in a brainstorming session came up with 20% more ideas collectively than those who brainstormed in a criticism-free environment. What's more, individuals in the debate group, when asked after if they had any additional ideas, came up with twice as many good ideas than the people in the criticism-free group. In other words, it turns out a little argument can be good for the creative mind. List, 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 and take the good with the bad. Of course, you don't always have the option of brainstorming with a group. In these cases, you can try the 100 rule, which is you think of 100 ideas on a topic you're given, and most importantly, write down any idea regardless of how ridiculous it sounds. So if you're asked to write an essay on To Kill a Mockingbird, and your idea is to relate that to the death of mockingbird populations in the early 1920s, go right ahead. If you want to compare Catcher in the Rye to Mike Piazza's Major League Baseball record, write it down. By including the weird, outlandish ideas, you'll stimulate the growth of really good, even great ideas. Even if you don't make it to 100, by the time you get to 30 or 40 in the list, you should start to see ideas that pull your essay into focus. Let your mind wander. If you find yourself staring at the page, fresh out of good ideas for your essay, take a 10 or 15 minute break and do something diverting but not too mentally tasking. Play a game of Angry Birds, for instance. Something that helps you zone out. Researchers at the University of California at Santa Barbara found that people were more effective at the same task they'd been working on previously after they took a break and let their minds wander for a while. If you're going to be in a time crunch, brainstorming an essay for a time test is a different animal than brainstorming for an essay in which you have the leisure of writing from home. During time tests, you might get a little more than a half hour total to write your essay. That includes brainstorming, outlining, and actually writing the darn thing. So how do you write a great essay under these conditions? Let's look at a couple kinds of essays you might face. Position papers. Say you're given a position paper in which you're asked to agree or disagree with a given argument. For example, write an essay in which you agree or disagree with the following statement. Whatever doesn't kill us only makes us stronger. Right away, before you brainstorm specific ideas, you should break down the question. Agree and disagree columns don't really lead anywhere, so let's be more specific. Column A. Things that didn't kill me, that didn't make me stronger. Column B, things that haven't killed me that did make me stronger. Column C, things that didn't kill me, but it remains to be seen if I'm any better for it. If you have only 5 or 10 minutes to brainstorm, try a modified version of the 100 rule, which is to say, write down as many ideas as come to you for both sides of the issue, as well as those that fall in the middle. Call it the 5-minute rule. Spend a full 5 minutes jotting down whatever comes to mind, no matter how ridiculous. Then sift through and see if some of those ideas can be connected to each other. Whichever column has the stronger examples should tell you what approach you should take on your essay. Draw examples from whatever's available to you, but the best essays will use your personal experience and knowledge of history and current events to make a persuasive argument. Pro tip: if you get stuck and just can't think of anything on these time tests, relax, reread the prompt, and try again. No topic is too impressive. Synthesis papers. Another kind of paper you may be asked to write is one in which you must develop a position from different sources, like this. Read the following sources, then construct an essay on whether you believe that reading comic books hurts or harms children. In these essays, you'll need to spend more time brainstorming, as you'll be given the sources to read as well as have your own ideas to come up with. First, read the passages that you're given. Then, do the same as if you didn't have any sources to draw from. Figure out what your position is first by listing the pros and cons of that approach, and then dig back into the readings and try to pull out more examples that support your position, or oppose it, and use that to develop your essay. This will help you form an essay that is more your own than just...
Variations of brainstorming. There are a number of variations of brainstorming, with most of these techniques widely written about in creative technique books and websites. The most popular including nominal group technique, group passing technique or brainwriting, team idea mapping, electronic brainstorming, directed brainstorming. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Decision making is the process of identifying and selecting a course of action to solve a specific problem. A decision tree is a graph that uses a branching method to illustrate every possible outcome of a decision. Decision-making accuracy was higher when groups knew a great deal about the issue at hand, and group leaders possessed the ability to effectively evaluate the group members' opinions and judgments. Brainstorming works by focusing on a problem and then deliberately coming up with as many solutions as possible, and by pushing the ideas as far as possible. The nominal group technique is a type of brainstorming that encourages all participants to have an equal say in the process.